Hey everybody, welcome back to the Journey podcast. I'm really excited today. I have Elaine Welteroth here. She is an incredible woman. You all know her, former editor-in-chief of Teen Vogue, mama of soon-to-be two, creator of BirthFUND, and I'm really excited to have her here today because Elaine has had such a dream life for so many aspirational women, and I just think that it's important for all of us to hear from her stories on how she redefined for herself success and how she has also been able to do that while being herself. So, New York Times bestselling author, I can't forget that. Hello, of More Than Enough. So welcome, Elaine.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Debaun, a passionate entrepreneur and life advisor. With the Journey podcast, you'll discover that success isn't about the destination, it's about the journey. I'm sharing stories of amazing people who've taken control of their lives. Join me on my own journey to discover the secret sauce behind reaching success with permission from no one else. We were just talking before we started the show, and I was like, we should just go ahead and record because I saw Elaine in passing in Martha's Vineyard at a Leading Women Define event, which I just joined the advisory board, the board of that nonprofit, which has been really fun. This was the first year I brought my whole family too. I brought my parents with me and my nephew, my sister-in-law, and my brother. And it was so much more fun having family than just going for work.
Totally. I mean, you did it right. You brought the babysitters, the grandparents who are the babysitters. We didn't have that. So we ended up actually getting a hookup with a babysitter. So the last night we went to go see Debaun stand up and we ran the streets like we were young again. But it was such a different experience doing Martha's Vineyard as a family. I was like, oh, I get it. I see us doing this every August as a family. It's like such a mecca. It's an oasis for Black families. Like there's no place like it in the world. It's like, I've never seen so many Black families doing well, thriving, all in one place. It's just like Pleasantville. It's like, and it's fun. Yeah. It's like there's stuff going on. There's worky stuff during the day. And then there's like beach time where you'll maybe run into some people, but it's really a beautiful vibe there. And I don't think I could fully appreciate it before I had a baby.
I totally agree with that. I mean, I've been a few seasons before and I always was like either in and out or like felt like I didn't plan well enough. I didn't know what was going on. So I wasn't invited to things. And I think that's one thing about Martha's Vineyard. I mean, it is there are some challenges to accessibility from like a financial perspective. It's incredibly expensive. And then also you do have to be invited to a lot of things. Yeah. So that can be hard. And I think now that we're kind of like the young families there, it'll be interesting to see how our kids are able to like have their own little culture and friends. Like my son is 11 months today.
Congratulations. Well, by the way, because I have to dive into that whole piece, the fact that you just slid in that you have a baby and I didn't even know that is crazy. But I feel like there's a tech solution to the social calendar thing on Martha's Vineyard. So you should, I know you know people, or maybe even you could solve for that. Because it's true, there is like so much going on, but unless you're plugged in and people know you're there, like you're out of the loop, which kind of is nice because then you're just enjoying.
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse. Because you kind of want to be on vacation and relaxing, but then at the same time, you're like, oh, wait, there was like a Chanel event. Why wasn't I invited?
Wait, there was a Chanel event?
There's a Balmain event and a Tiffany's event and a couple of other like luxury brands activated there.
Really? I think I came after that. But anyway.
No, you were there that week.
Oh, no. I was?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, listen, what you don't know won't hurt you. Now I know it and I'm a little hurt. No, I'm just kidding. Well, I was packed. I was doing speaking engagements. I'm pregnant. So I was just tired and I was like happy to sit down and relax when I had the opportunity to. But wait, so congratulations on your whole new life. You moved to Nashville. You are engaged. You have a whole baby. You're a whole mother.
It's a whole thing.
What is life like now? I haven't caught up with you in like years since you were
in the Bay
Area. Tech mogul, always working. So what shifted? Tell me everything.
You know, a few different things changed. I was kind of like, I started Blabbity when I was 24. I was so young. And I'm grateful that I started young because I was able to like work crazy hours like you did when you were living in New York and doing all the things. I mean, I slept with my laptop. Like I was working so much. Like I'd wake up, roll over and just get back to it. So I think that was the momentum that was the foundation for my success. Was like part of it was just brute force and grit. And then at some point I was able to slow down really, I think, during the COVID time frame, because I was able to have that kind of like forced slowdown. I mean, I wasn't on a plane every week. I didn't have people interrupting me in the office all day. Like, I was able to actually just sit with my thoughts and sit with myself once we got over the like trauma of COVID. During that time, I realized, I think, how far I had come. And it was just hard for me to see when I was in it. Like, I had so much momentum. I had so much success. I had a strong foundation. The company was doing well. My leaders are great people. And what I didn't have was basically the balance across my whole life. Like, if I was a Venn diagram, I was 100% gravity. At different seasons in your life, that's totally fine to be 100% your passion and your purpose. Like, I think that's a beautiful life. It was not the life that I wanted in perpetuity. And so I had to basically redefine with myself kind of my definition of success and like say, okay, this is good. It's not going to go down to 0, but you don't need it to be 100% anymore. Like, that season is over. And in fact, you're probably getting in your own way, making it 100%. Like, your employees don't need to talk to you every day. They don't even want to talk to you every day. So how can I make more space for me as a person? So I focused on myself first. It was like, I got in shape. I moved to Manhattan Beach and Hermosa Beach and just walked every single day, like, lost weight, did all the glow up things that the girls are talking about now. I did that 4 years ago. And then I broke my lease in LA and moved to Nashville because my parents live here. My dad's a doctor at Vanderbilt. And so I moved into my parents' house, which was crazy. Saved up my money to buy the house that I live in now. And, 9 months later, met a man. Here we are.
How did you guys meet? Now I need that story. I know I'm like flipping the script on you.
No, you're fine. It's a podcast. It's for whatever we want to talk about. Josh and I met in a really random way. So we have a mutual friend named Nelson, who was a doctor at Vandy as well. And I had just moved into town, and I didn't really know anyone in Nashville. I had been to Nashville because my parents had lived here for 10 years, but I just was always I was exhausted every time I was coming home, whether it was like college or from work. I'm like, I'm just coming home to like sit on the couch and watch movies and eat food. Like, I'm not really trying to be out in the streets. So I texted him because he's one of the only people I knew and was like, hey, do you want to like go get a drink or anything on like Friday? He was like, yep. And he was like, oh, by the way, my other friend, Josh, is going to come with us. And you guys are both in media. Like, you should get along. I was like, sure, the more the merrier, like whatever. So I get to this bar and hadn't seen Nelson in a while because we went to college together. And he just starts like asking me 1,000,001 questions. Like, what's it like dating as a CEO? What's it like doing this? And what's it like to be this to Blavity? And how are you doing? Just like literally asking 1,000,000 questions. And Josh is just sitting there like very low key, very just laid back, not super engaged, but not disengaged. And I'm 2 drinks in at this point, and I'm like, all right, let's do something else. I'm trying to get out the hot seat here. Nashville has a ton of speakeasies, like all little hidden spots. So we went to this place underneath the bar that we were at, and it was like a little club. And we started dancing and stuff. And then this guy walks in that they knew, and apparently he knew me, but I didn't know him. And so he starts to be like, so tell me about why you moved to Nashville. And like, how can we work together? Like, basically trying to have a work conversation. But now I'm like 3 drinks in and it's a Friday night. So I'm twerk. Like, I'm not like, what are we doing?
Right.
So Josh realizes
catch me on Monday with that.
Yeah, like, bro, like, what are we talking about? So Josh realizes my energy and picks me up physically and moves me and starts dancing with me, which I don't know this man.
I like it. I'm not mad at it.
It was good. It was giving masculine energy. So, and that's what I needed. I needed a person who was going to let me be in my feminine and let me be taken care of, and not have to be an independent woman all the time. Because I'm an independent woman at work, but I don't want to be an independent woman at home.
Yes.
So that was the beginning of the end. We went on a date later that week, sushi bar. I was still traveling back to LA like every other week. So he would pick me up from the airport, take me to, a restaurant. Like, we didn't even kiss, I think, for like 3 months,
I love that.
But we were inseparable ever since.
And how long ago was that?
That was 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago. Wow. Like 2021 is 2024. Yeah, 3 years ago.
Wow. And now you're engaged. When did that happen?
We got engaged this past summer in Paris at the Eiffel Tower vibes. It was beautiful. He did a great job. I was ready. I was like, where is my ring? Hello. I done pushed out a whole baby. We done gained 45 pounds. Mama needs a ring. But
And
he had a vision.
well,
He's a creative. So
he
he's
did
like,
well.
yes, he did a great job. It's strong. So yeah, everything is good. Now I'm just like, wedding planning is a nightmare. You got married during COVID,
I
right?
did. I did.
Yeah.
I highly recommend the stoop wedding
Yeah,
that
the
we
simple,
did.
simple.
Yeah, we were supposed to have this big wedding, but we never moved forward with it because the world shut down. And
Yeah.
we decided we were going to save our date, and we got really creative within the parameters that we were handed and ended up having the most magical, special makeshift wedding on our stoop. And I wore a dress I already owned that was in my closet. I had
Beautiful.
10 friends come in all white. We wore masks and parasols, and it was magical. And then it turned into a whole Brooklyn block party.
So
Like,
good.
all the neighbors came out. People were on the roofs. People were literally dancing on the roofs. People were on their stoop with their pots and pans. People went back inside, got their bow ties on. Like, it was like, the oldest couple on the block down to like the youngest little kids. People were just in the streets, and it was, I get chills talking about it. You know what it felt like? It felt like a proper, on top of being our wedding, it
Mm-hmm.
was like a proper New York send off. Like, it
That's
was our
beautiful.
graduation from New York. After that, we were like, we did it.
That's it.
We rode off into the sunset. After that, I was like, I'm ready to move. We did New York. I feel like we left with the love of community. And
Mm-hmm.
every time we go back to New York, we go back to our block in Brooklyn, Macon Street, and we say hi to all of our neighbors. And it's so funny because that block is like very neighborhoody. People have been there a really long time. People are very low key. So we didn't
Mm-hmm.
really know our neighbors before we got married. And then we became like the favorites on the
Very
block.
intimate moment there.
Yeah. And everyone was invited inadvertently. And then Vogue ended up covering our wedding. And so it was so funny because these like OGs on the block would be like, yo, what up? Thanks for putting us in Vogue.
I
Like,
love that.
like they started calling me Vogue. And I was just like, this is like literally the best. My world's combining. Like, it was such a magical moment. But I say that to say, like, the only thing I think I spent money on were the flower arrangements that we
Florals.
did that really like elevated the stoop and made it feel like a beautiful altar. And so I don't envy those of y'all who are doing the wedding planning, because I remember what that was like, and it was just such a huge contrast going
Terrible.
from like, it's stressful, and even if you intend for it to not be, it's like inevitably there's stress involved. But you know what, however you do it, just make sure that your intention is at the center of every decision that you make.
Totally. Well, I think the hard part is for him and I, like, we are very much like, we're comfortable, like, we operate married, like, we've already committed to one another. So
Yeah.
it's so beautiful in between, but the marriage is truly like
The cherry on
fundamentally, privately a covenant, right? Like that we're going into. But I think what's hard is that I live such a public life that even having a wedding would become a bit of a production. I mean, I literally have a huge production at Afrotech like every year, right? So like I'm an event person by nature, and he's a creative producer, director, video production company that does really well here in Nashville. And he's like, he has more attention to detail than I do. Like I'm more of a like, throw it on a wall 80-20. He's like 110 and 110. So
Okay, two of you, oh my gosh, this is going to be an epic event.
No, but I'm like, but do we really want to spend our time like that? Like, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. Like, let's go build a house.
Yeah.
Like, if we're going to give that kind of energy of attention to detail where we're going to have all these weekly meetings about what do we want and then I'm like, let's just go build a house and buy some acres.
That's what we did. But I will tell you, even the stoop wedding required that. It was the first time that we like became creative collaborators, and like it was intense, but it was like 2 weeks or 3 weeks of that versus like versus like months and months of planning.
Or like 2 years. Like some of the venues that I was looking at when I first got engaged are already booked for next summer.
It's wild.
So I'm like, this is wild. And here's the other thing, Elaine, that I think is one of the reasons why we're trending towards eloping is being pregnant and then having a baby was also just a huge transition for me and for him and for us. And the capitalism involved in the baby industry was also really hard for me. Like I didn't do a baby shower. I did a nesting week where basically I had all my girlfriends come in. I gave them a week range and said, come in at any given point and let's do that. Like, I don't need you guys to buy me gifts. I need your time because your girl has not set up anything. And you guys have had babies. So tell me all the things that you can't really, like, no one's ever asked you, but like, I need to know all
Yeah.
the things, you know? So like, I felt like this period, these last 3 years has just been a lot of newness that's just been hard, you know?
Yeah. How was your birth and how has your transition into motherhood been?
You know, my birth was pretty strong. I had a reasonable black girl pregnancy. You know, at one point I had high blood pressure, wound up in the hospital during my nesting week with the girls. So they all came with me to the ER.
No.
But I was just excited. I'm an introvert. So everybody being with me just raised my blood pressure up too high. So I needed to calm down, calm down. We're good. And I was probably dehydrated as well. But then at that point, so then I started taking my blood pressure every day, the little blood pressure cuff. I don't know if you're there yet, but just get it ready, ladies. If any of you guys are expecting, just get the blood pressure cuff ready. And I have a black OBGYN, which is one of the very few black OBGYNs in Nashville. She's amazing. Her name is Dr. Uwelu, for anyone who's looking for an OB-GYN. And she was really helpful because she took me very seriously. And so if I had any issues, questions, concerns, she was responsive. And I was intentional about finding a black OBGYN because I knew the information anecdotally, you know, and how risky this process is and how challenging it is. It wasn't until I was really, really pregnant, probably like 6 months in, that right when I had that scare where I went to the doctor, that then everybody kind of laid it on me. Like, my dad's a doctor. He was like, hey, Morgan, can I just send you these couple of research studies that showed like the data on preeclampsia, the data on preterm delivery for Black women, regardless of social economic status, you know? And I was like, I don't think that I fully saw the statistics, which is why I'm so happy you're doing BirthFUND, because I completely think that it's not discussed enough just from an awareness perspective. And all of that being said, my birth was reasonably seamless. We had a couple of little things that had to be changed, like he was sunny side up, so they had to go in and manually turn him, which I do not wish on anyone. But the alternative was a C-section, so luckily he was able to be turned. I labored at home for 12 hours, got to like 6 or 7 centimeters dilated, and then felt like I wasn't progressing, which is why I ultimately went in. Luckily, I went in because that would have been very difficult to do alone. And it was just it was a beautiful, like, he arrived, he was perfect.
Oh, I love that for you so much. Did you have a doula or who was
No doula. So I talked to my OB-GYN and said, hey, should I get a doula? And she said, do you think you need a doula to talk to me? And I said, I don't think I need a doula. Chill, Dr. Uwelu, chill. I don't need a doula to talk to you. However, what about these nurses? That was my concern, because the shift change was something I was really worried about. You know, when you're in labor, people only can work 8 hours. So all those women that you arrived with are definitely not the women there when your baby's there. And once you deliver, there's another segment where you're kind of in that transitional period before they move you to the other room, which is likely another set of nurses. So I was really nervous about, I'm in the state of Tennessee. It's one of the worst statistics in the whole country in terms of birth outcomes for women of color. So I was really nervous about who's going to advocate for me when you're not here. Because the doctor only comes in at the end.
Right.
And she said, I got you. When you go in, I'll check who's on call so that I can have a better perspective on who's your nurse team. I work with these women every day. Like, you're going to be okay. I was like, okay. So I really trusted that she had my back. And, you know, I think I felt confident because we were able to have that conversation. And the Ascension St. Thomas, which was the hospital here, has like really good numbers, you know? So
that's great.
I took that risk.
And it worked out.
And now a word from our sponsor, HelloFresh. With Afrotech right around the corner and my book pre-order about to launch, life is nothing short of chaotic, my friends. Between prepping for the event, wrapping up work, and just the buzz of excitement at my house, I have such a hard time finding time for nutritious meals. That's why I'm incredibly grateful for HelloFresh. They deliver fresh ingredients and easy-to-follow recipes right to my door weekly. When I'm juggling work and family and gearing up for this busy season, HelloFresh takes the pressure off meals. It's a lifesaver. Their new Build-A-Plate meals gives me the flexibility to customize without the extra cooking. One meal for the whole family, including baby, with something that everyone loves. And for a limited time, kids eat free. So go to HelloFresh.com/JourneyKids to unlock this exclusive offer. One free kids meal per box for 2 months while a subscription is active. That's free kids meals just by going to HelloFresh.com/journeykids. Even during this busy time, HelloFresh ensures I have time to enjoy a great meal. No wonder they're America's #1 meal kit. If you're anything like me, you didn't start a business to spend the bulk of your time managing your finances. Between budgeting, tracking expenses, and staying organized for tax time, there goes a good chunk of your day. Get back to doing what you love and let Found do the rest. I've always wondered why there wasn't a baking tool designed specifically for us, small business owners who need something simple, cost-effective, and tailored to our needs. I used to waste money and time every single month juggling multiple apps and complicated accounts. And now Found has a solution for all of that. Found is an all-in-one business banking solution designed for small businesses and solopreneurs. Seriously, it's an absolute game changer. With Found, you can manage your money, track your spending, send invoices, pay contractors, and even handle your own taxes all in one app. No more jumping around between 5 different tools just to keep your business running. And I'm not the only one who's loving Found. Just listen to what one of their users had to say. Found has made managing my small business finances so much easier. I used to dread tax season, but now it's a breeze with all of the tools that Found provides. If you're ready to simplify your business finances and get back to doing what you love, check out Found. Over 500,000 small business owners have already made that switch. Try Found for free at found.com/journey. Sign up for Found for free today at FOUND.com/journey. It worked out.
It worked out. And I'm so glad that you had a Black OB that made you feel comfortable and that you could have those conversations with. Birth is one of the most unpredictable experiences in life, and you don't know how to prepare for the unpredictable. And then I wonder if you felt this way too, but being so prepared as a professional and being so type A in your work life. And I think going into motherhood, you try to apply that same energy, and or you're sort of like, how hard can this be? I do like really hard things in my professional life. You maybe overlook the preparedness that it requires to become a mom in this country, especially as a Black woman. And then you feel overwhelmed by how much you don't know.
That was my issue.
Yeah, by how much risk there is in this country and how much more work it takes for us to make sure that we're going to be okay. It can be daunting. And that was my experience. I hadn't planned my pregnancy. So I was dealing with the shock of that and the life change of that. And then physically it was a difficult pregnancy. And then it was difficult for me in LA to find a doctor that made me feel safe. And I looked for Black OBs as well. And I mean, I ran the gamut. And what I recognize is there is a systemic issue around birth care in this country. And as you said, no matter your socioeconomic position, you can't, as a Black woman, escape the risk of becoming a statistic. And I never really understood how real and true that is until it was my turn, like you. And I was confronting some of this for the first time in a real way. It's like, it's one thing to read the statistics. It's another to recognize how close you are to becoming one. Yes. And so I felt really compelled once I was introduced to Black midwives who completely transformed my experience of being pregnant, of preparing for birth, and then my birth journey. It honestly gave birth to a new version of me, as cliche as that might sound. And I felt really compelled to change the narrative around birth and to expand the conversation around our options and to really work at expanding access to better options. Because I truly believe in a country where 50% of families describe their birth experiences as traumatic, we have to be working proactively to change that. Because while like traumatic birth in America may be the norm, it is not normal. And we have to stop normalizing it. And we have to start shifting the focus away from just the alarming statistics and the fear mongering around Black women giving birth and the terrible disproportionate outcomes that we're all aware of now, most of us are, and really start talking about solutions and lifting up joyful, safe births and what that looks like and what the path to that, more importantly, looks like. And so that's why I started BirthFUND, because I saw this white space. I'm like, how does this not exist? Like, once I experienced midwifery care and the transformative model, this holistic model of care that for me was so far superior to anything I'd experienced in the medical system, which we're all taught to think is the standard. It's like the highest bar of care. We're taught to think of doctors almost as gods, like demigods.
Yes.
Like we hand over our power to them. We do what they say. We don't question them. We get intimidated by them. Like that's not the dynamic. That dynamic is problematic. And we've never even interrogated that. And you don't really know that you can even have better than that until you get this completely different type of care that is just, it was life-changing. It was eye-opening. And I just thought, if this exists, which I didn't even know it did, this should be an option that more women are aware of and that more women have access to. And if it literally is going to start with just me investing in another family's maternal care, just so I can help one family experience that, then that's the beginning of my life's work. Like I am going to throw everything that I have learned, all the people that I've met, all the skills that I have cultivated over time, and apply it to solving this problem. And I really believe that between us, even Morgan, like the amount of badass, strategic, resourced, boss-ass women and men that are now fathers, by the way, many of them are now fathers, many of our age group were becoming parents. If we decided to focus even a percentage of our brain power, of our network, of our skill set on solving this problem, we could solve it in our lifetime. And so what is stopping us when there is arguably nothing more important than keeping mothers alive to raise the babies that we bring into this world, especially in a political environment where we're being forced into motherhood and into a broken maternal health care system before we're ready. Like it is time to get activated around this. And I feel so much hope and like optimism and possibility around how much we can actually move the needle by just mainstreaming this movement and this work. And just by not talking about it alone, but talking about the solution and rallying people to invest in the solution. So that's what we are doing. That is what BirthFUND is here to do. We're building a coalition of people like you and me who have resources, who understand this issue from a first person perspective, who agree that it's important and are willing to put our own resources behind it, rally our own networks, and make the change that frankly we've been waiting too long for the government to fix. And like they're not going to do it, we're going to do it. And we're going to need systemic change. I don't want to underestimate that. But I think the quickest pathway to change is by initiating it yourself. And that's what BirthFUND's doing.
I agree. And I think the part of the birth process and the pregnancy process that was so surprising to me was it always felt like the priority was the baby, not the person carrying the baby. So, and I understand that, yes, it was and is the OB-GYN's responsibility and the office's responsibility to ensure the health of the baby. Like, is the baby healthy? Are we checking in on the baby? And I'm like, yes, but I felt like there was very little guidance on the vessel for said baby. There was very little guidance on this is what you should be eating. These are the vitamins you should be taking. This is how much water you should be drinking. Make sure you're exercising. There was very little guidance on, hey, you're going on some flights, get some compression socks so you don't get Charlie horses. Hey, this is happening. Make sure you do this to offset that. Like I had to piecemeal all of this care things for myself. I had to research it. I had to do even the getting pregnant part. I had fertility books and all types of stuff and diets and seed oils and all types of stuff, natural deodorants. I had to do all the things, to prepare. And also even like researching what skincare products I couldn't use when I was pregnant, like I'm freshly back on my Botox. I'm so happy. 2.5 years just took me out, y'all.
You are giving Benjamin Button, I will say.
I'll take it.
I don't know what you're doing, and we got to talk, but I feel like Botox is like, anyway, we should talk about this later because I have questions. I haven't really dabbled, but I'm just like, maybe
just a little. I'm not crazy on the units, just a little. I mean, I can still, this is fresh and I can still move my face. You know what I'm saying? Like we're still moving, but we're not.
It looks good.
Thank you. Anywho, my point is I felt like I had to piecemeal every single piece of information. And so what was frustrating to me, I remember telling Josh, like literally every week, I'm like, if this is my experience, can you imagine the woman who is not resourced, that is not networked, who isn't going to get a text back from the doctor? Can you imagine her experience of being passed around this medical system with
very little accountability. There's no accountability to these doctors. There's no accountability to the doctors when they get it wrong. There's no accountability when they don't provide care. Everything is your fault. It's not their fault. And that is the part that pisses me off about how women are treated in this country, and particularly in the birthing experience, as if birthing is an anomaly. Birthing is one of the most natural, prehistoric experiences. We're made literally to do this. So like, it felt like I was having an out of body, unique experience navigating this country as a birthing person.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that every woman I looked at and every person I looked at was birthed. So I don't understand how we're here as a society. And so I love that what you guys are doing, because it's crazy to me.
It is, it's to me as well. I mean, when I started thinking about this, I was like, this has to exist already.
It doesn't.
And then I was just like, wow. There is a lot to do. There's a lot of work to do. And the beauty is that I have found overwhelming support for this. I was actually surprised by it, because we know that like women's health is so far down on the cultural agenda, and it wasn't even something that was on my radar, you know? And I'm not saying this is just like it's a man's world and they don't care about us. We don't care about us and our health enough. We don't know enough to care about what could happen and how to prevent those things. So I honestly feel like my new measure of success around this particular endeavor is when like a Gen Z person, somebody who would have been like my Teen Vogue era reader, comes up to me about BirthFUND and is like, yo, what you're doing with this is changing the way I'm thinking about my path to becoming a mom one day. And I'm just so grateful and I'm learning so much. And I'm like, that is when I know I'm doing something right. When we're seizing the opportunity to change the culture of birth in this country for people before it's their turn, we are going to create little advocates. We are going to create a much more empowered generation of parents who are not going to be talked down to, who are not going to be pushed around by the medical system, who are going to come in prepared with the right questions, who are going to have a greater sense of agency over their own path to parenthood. And hopefully we will at some point be at a place where preventable deaths of mothers in this country is at zero. That is our goal. And we are not stopping until we get to that goal.
It's so important. And I guess I'm curious, how did you decide to model this movement that you're creating?
It wasn't for me about building some social movement. It really was something that was really just organic. It was something that came out of my lived experience. It was having an aha moment about just how broken the system is, recognizing, like you said, if this is my experience as somebody with the amount of privilege and access that I have, I can't imagine what this experience, or I can only imagine what this experience is for somebody who doesn't speak English as their first language, who isn't well educated, who doesn't have the time to continue dating different doctors, who doesn't have access to healthcare. Like, so when you really wake up to those realities, you can't look away. You can't go back to sleep. And, you know, I started talking about the issue, and I found myself being invited to speak on the Today Show and things like that. And I just felt very quickly like I cannot just be out here talking about the problem if I'm not building a solution. Like I felt very called to be a part of building solutions around this. And BirthFUND was birthed out of that genuine desire to just help one family. If I can just help one family as one person, imagine what we can do as a collective. And so it started with my birthday, literal fundraiser on Instagram.
You're like, no, Morgan, I wasn't that strategic. And I think that's actually important for people to know, because outside looking in, I think sometimes I can imagine for a lot of people watching our lives, it feels like everything is like, I had a business plan and I did this. And it's like, no, like you felt a purpose and an adjustment to your calling, and you made a commitment and you were taking it one step at a time. I think that's amazing.
Well, I will say that it's both. It wasn't like I didn't have strategy. I think there's no way what we do in career is always applied, whether it's your wedding or if you're starting a nonprofit. We're strategic thinkers. So once I saw the problem, my strategic mind started moving like, wait a minute, if I know I can afford to pay for at least one family's birth for my birthday, so it started with an Instagram fundraiser. But before I even pressed go on that, I had this vision of, what would happen if I invited Serena Williams to be a part of this? What would happen if I called on a number of very well-resourced and public-facing individuals who I know care about this issue and got them to commit funds and commit their platforms to focusing on this issue area? Like, what could we do overnight?
Like, yeah, a lot.
Yeah, I mean, yes, this is a complex problem, but this is solvable. And
yeah, that's true.
So it sort of felt to me like I could be a conduit to rapid change around this just by applying what I already have access to at my fingertips, you know? And so I feel like it was years of building a career and a platform and a community where I can make a phone call and get somebody to pick up and articulate this problem and get them to say yes. And by that point, I went live with this birthday fundraiser. I said, if I can cover the cost of one family for my birthday, like that's all I want. If you would like to join me, you can, tap in. Here's the fundraiser link. And then I went off. I had a great birthday. And then somebody texted me and they're like, did you see you hit your goal already?
Yay.
And I was like, what? No way. And it turns out that we raised enough to cover not one, but 2 births within 16 hours without press, without anything. And I thought, this is the proof of concept.
Yeah, that's your inflection point.
That if I build it, people will come. And so I have to build it. And so I sort of had this vision. I don't know about you and how you move it, but I really feel like I wait for the call. And then I get this download of a vision for how to do a thing. And it was really clear for me on how to do this and how quickly I wanted to do this. And I knew who I wanted to call. I had a list of people and I knew.
I'm the same way. It's like, I kind of call it like, I have multiple pathways of success that at any given moment I will take, but I am agnostic about which road I take. So I will respond to the energy, the feedback, the traction, I'm startup girl. So the traction of whatever that is, and then I will move in that direction. But I am completely happy and joyful with any of these 10 options. So to your point, like for me, it would be like, I'm married to solving the birthing problem, but I'm okay with it being any one of these 10 options to solve that problem, And I think the beauty of your world is that you have all this social capital that you've built through sweat equity and consistency. And so it's awesome that you've been able to create this momentum in a way that's really changing people's lives. Is the goal, like, walk me through what the current flow is? So one family was like $15,000. I can't remember I think I just looked at the numbers, but.
So we're raising funds to directly fund births outside of the hospital with midwives. And so to support one family is roughly $10,000.
Okay.
But there's so many ways we get to that point. I mean, we also work with corporate partners. So we work with individuals like Serena Williams and Alexis Ohanian, which, by the way, Serena was the one who opened my eyes to this crisis years before I was even thinking about having babies. When I saw her documentary, that woke me up. Like, if one of the most powerful women in the world, one of the most well-resourced women in the world could have come that close to dying in childbirth because she wasn't listened to, because she was neglected.
Heartbreaking.
This is a wake-up call for all of us. So that's why she was one of the first calls that I make. And she said yes right away. And then she said, call my husband. And I'm like, yes, because the work is going to require more than just women talking to each other in an echo chamber. We got to pull in partners and men in this conversation. So we also, I'm glad to say, John Legend is involved with Chrissy. LeBron joined Savannah. I actually asked Savannah James to be a part of it. And then after he saw the impact that we were having, LeBron came in and said, I want to match her contribution.
Let's go. Come on, dads.
Right? So we built this really sort of powerful front-facing funding circle that was committed to covering the cost of families to have access to midwifery care in the city that they either gave birth in or that they were born in. So there's a real community connection. And then we also approached corporate partners and said, this is the work that we're doing. Can you support us? And what can you do? Because a little bit different from what you said. There's other, like, I would say my approach to my magazine career was a lot like what you said. Like, I don't care how I get there. I have plan A through Z. I'm going to get there by hook or by crook. If it has to be through crawling through a window or, you know what I mean? Like, I had truly like a master plan on all the ways I was going to crack the door open and get my foot in. In this case, because it was, I'm telling you, Morgan, it was such a clear download.
Mm.
It was so specific. There aren't multiple ways for me to come at this.
Mm.
For me, the one solution that I am focused on investing in is midwifery care.
I mean, that's awesome.
80% of these deaths are preventable through midwifery care. That's what I'm focused on. That's what changed my life. So I believe if we each tackle one part of this problem, we will solve it in our lifetime. I am committed stubbornly and singularly focused
To
on
this solution.
this solution.
Yes.
I'm going to talk about it until I'm blue in the face. I'm focused on this. And I'm partnering, I'm creating coalition with other people and other entities who can play their part in a different way. The way we work with corporate partners, for example, like we approached SoFi and we were clear about what we do. And then our ask to every partner is, what can you do? And SoFi came to the table and they were like, you know what? We want to support your work. And we have a pillar that's focused on generational wealth. And we know that the pathway to parenthood, a huge hurdle is the financial aspect. And so we started talking about how the maternal health crisis is squarely intersecting with the economic crisis. And like 56% of families don't even feel like they can afford to have a baby.
It's incredibly cash expensive.
Totally. Let alone even then have to pay for the healthcare and all that comes with it. So they came to the table and said, we're going to support your cause by funding what you're doing. And we are going to donate or give $10,000 to each of your families in cash to open a high yield savings account.
So smart.
And pair them with a financial advisor who can help them map out their family's financial future. And together with BirthFUND, we'll build a bespoke financial guide. So it was like, this is my dream. This is my vision, is like everybody coming to the table and saying, I will support what you're doing and I will contribute in the way that I can, and it will look a little different. So if everybody can contribute, that's how we make progress. And I think tapping into your superpower to figure out how you can tackle the thing that you care about the most is the recipe for success, because I can't, I'm not a public health professional. I'm not a nonprofit person. I'm not there's so many people have been in this work coming at it from a different angle, and we need them too. But I come at this from the perspective of a mother who was impacted.
Yes.
I'm a professional with a skill set that I can contribute to this work. And I have lived experience around and a deep belief in the model of midwifery. And I know as a journalist, I know the stats. I know how if we just invest in this solution, we can change these outcomes in our lifetime. So for me, that's the recipe. And I only share that specificity of how I arrived at this because I do think there is something to it for other people who are thinking about the impact they want to make.
I think so too.
It really
the clarity that you have on how you're going to measure your impact is frankly refreshing. I think a lot of times when I talk to people, they are unclear about the metric that they're actually tracking towards. And they are unclear about how the metric they're tracking towards, if multiplied and amplified, to your point, with a holistic approach that's going to require a lot of different people and a lot of different entities. But if you take it one thing at a time, if midwife equals better outcomes, then that is actually breathtakingly simple. Not easy to get done, but simple. And that's ideal.
Totally. And that's why I was like, how does this not exist? Why isn't there a midwifery fund? Because sadly in this country, it's not covered by insurance in a lot of places. And
no, it's not. Your OB-GYN might be like, oh, you're low risk, you can have a midwife, but it's not actually standard practice.
It's not at all standard practice. And then there's so much stigma surrounding midwifery. If you are to tell your friends or your family that you're going to have a home birth with a midwife, people will look at you like you have three heads. But the reality is when you look, they should be looking at you like that when you're going to the hospital as a Black woman in this country. Not to take away from great doctors. I am not anti-doctor. We need doctors. But what we really need is an integrated maternal health care system that incorporates the expertise of doctors alongside the expertise of midwives and doulas. Right. And right now it's very siloed and it's very much, there's a hierarchy that's being reinforced that just doesn't stand up when you look at the statistics.
Period. I think in an ideal society, everybody would work together for the best interest of the mother and the baby. We are not in an ideal society. So in the meantime,
far from it.
This is where we're starting.
In the meantime, exactly. And that's what I always say, like our approach is and, not or.
Right. That's right.
We know that we need systemic change. We know that we need doctors and insurance companies, hospitals to change their practices. We need laws to change that will allow for this kind of integrated health model we're talking about that allows for midwives to thrive, because there's so many things standing in the way of their businesses even thriving. There's so much systemic change, but we don't have time to wait for systemic change, because it's going to take a while, and people are pregnant right now. People need the support right now. So we are here to raise funds in real time for families that need the help now, while we work on changing the narrative through compelling storytelling, while we work with lawmakers to change the laws, while we work with companies to help work with the insurance companies to expand access to midwifery care through the insurance model. So I'm just like, even through just seeing this through like this, the simplicity of like, how do we create greater access to midwives in this country, knowing that it can help save lives? The answer, like the ways in which we come at that are plentiful. There's so many different things that need to be addressed in order to just lift up this one solution, which is why I'm like stubbornly focused on it. There are plenty of other organizations that can do all the other stuff, but this is what we're here to do now. And again, I think like this is a model that can be applied to many different issues, in many different issue areas. But I do think it takes resolve and clarity, and frankly, the passion that can only come from personal experience.
Agreed.
You know?
Agreed. And that's why you are a unique person in this world. You know, I think every single one of the people listening or watching this is unique. They have a unique Venn diagram of their individual experience, their skill set, and the reality of the problems that exist in today's society.
Yes.
And if you can fit that all together, then your life's work is going to be more joyful, frankly. Yes. If it doesn't fit together, it can be rough.
Yeah, and more impactful. You know, I think you can find yourself working in Elaine on something that you don't care that much about, but you're good at it. So you just keep going, and the world will praise you for it. You will climb the ladder. You will get awards. But at the end of the day, you're empty, because it doesn't really matter. And what's the impact you're really having? So I think for me, finding a way to apply your zone of genius on something that really is going to be a needle mover, that is going to be part of your legacy, that's bigger than you, right? Like that's about more than you. I think that's really where you hit your stride in life. And it takes time to find that, you know? And I think it's great to remember that no matter where you are in your journey, every single piece along the way will contribute ultimately to the legacy that you'll have in the end. Even if you feel like you're stuck, or you're, you know, does anybody see the work that I'm doing, or is this even worth it? Like all of it, as long as you stay committed to this North Star of just trying to figure out what is the thing I'm really here to do? What is the thing that no one can do quite like me? Like, what's the impact I'm meant to have? Like, you have to stay in dialogue with that question, and you have to continue to wrestle with that. But eventually, like the answers will come, and your life experience will intersect with your professional experience, which will intersect with your social network, and you'll find a way to pull it all together. But you have to be curious, like endlessly curious. You have to be interrogating. You have to be seeking to make those connections, to make that Venn diagram kind of like come together, so that you're operating from your true zone of genius and applying it in the most impactful way.
I absolutely agree. Final question. There's someone listening to this who has their simple, not easy cause. What is the one thing that you would tell them that would help them take the next step towards action?
Gosh, what can I say that we haven't already said? Because I feel like you have summarized it so beautifully already. I do think it's important to have a plan, because I think it's easier to build consensus and to build credibility when you've really thought through how you're going to make the impact you intend to have. It makes your pitch more compelling. So I don't know, I wish I had like a concise, really like buttoned up way of like wrapping this up, but I do think you need to have a clear, solid call to action. You need to have a clear strategy and game plan. And then you need community to help you build anything that's going to outlast you. I think those three things are really important. And then the faith that if you build it, they will come. You know, you have to know that what you're doing is worthwhile before anyone else is going to validate your efforts, no matter how valiant. It has to come from here. You have to see it. You have to believe it. And the more that you do, the more compelling it is for the community that you will build around that thing, you know? And I do think at this point, now that I'm like 36 weeks pregnant and I'm being tasked with like building a team around this that can carry this work on while I slow down and try to practice what we preach, I'm like, you know, the community that you're building is not just external, it's also internal within the organization. You need to figure out how to put the right people in the right position to take it farther than you could do alone. You know, that's where I'm at now. I'm trusting as I prepare for maternity leave that I've placed this well-baked plan. This baby, essentially, that's like only 6 months old. We just launched in April into the hands of true midwives of this movement who will move it forward and allow myself to give birth to this baby, you know? Like, I feel like I'm in like two dual birthing processes at the same time.
You got pregnant right after you just gave birth. What are we doing?
Girl, this wasn't part of the plan either. I was fully off to the races with BirthFUND.
Sir, what is Jonathan up to?
Girl, when I found out I was pregnant, it was literally, I started this quietly. I quietly started this in December, right after my birthday, December 10th. Shout out to the Sagittariuses. And I was like, I'm going to launch this in spring. Like, I am sprinting. And then bam, right in the middle of my timeline for launch, I found out I was pregnant. And I was like, Lord, I do not have time for this right now. But I had to trust that this baby was part of this divine orchestration that's happening. And I just can't wait to meet this human. I'm like, you and me, we've been building something that is going to outlast us and that's going to benefit other people. Like, who are you? Like, your spirit has like powered me. Like, I feel like I've had a battery pack in my back and it could not be more different than my last pregnancy. My last pregnancy, I could barely get out of bed. I was struggling. It was so hard. But this time I've been like on planes every week. I have not skipped a beat. Like, I've just been, I've been in build mode, and it's been so amazing to see what happens when God puts something in front of you, gives you what you need to go after it. And like, you just have supernatural energy. You know what I mean? And then this baby is giving me supernatural energy. So I'm just excited to pass the torch for the time being, and then like settle into the miracle that is birth. And that the reason for why I've built this is for women to be able to have the support that they need to take a breath and enjoy this part and like give birth joyfully and, you know, in a sacred container. And so that's what I hope. That's what I pray. That's what I'm manifesting right now. I'm literally weeks away, like maybe days away. I don't know.
Well, this was such a great conversation. I'm so happy we're reconnected, and
me too.
Just sending you a prayer for a beautiful, joyful, peaceful,
thank you,
20 minutes max of pushing.
Please. 20 minutes. That's it. They say they can quicker the second time, Morgan. So I claim that.
Yes, I put that prayer over you, and just thank you so much for living in your purpose on behalf of all of us mamas and giving us a clear call to action that I think everyone can understand and everyone can be a part of. So I think that's just brilliant, and I'm so excited to see how BirthFUND continues to make an impact.
Thank you, Morgan, and congrats to you on everything. You're just glowing, and it's more than the Botox, boo. You look good. You're happy. I love to see it.
Life is good. Life is good. All right, y'all. I'll see you next episode. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Journey podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you leave a review and head to our Instagram and YouTube to leave a comment. I look forward to hearing how this podcast has made an impact on your own journey.